Good evening. I'm going to call the regular April meeting of the Verona Board of Adjustment to order at 7:36 p.m. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please read the notice of this meeting and call the roll?
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Township of Verona Board of Adjustment, which is being held in person in the ballroom of the Verona Community Center, located at 880 Bloomfield Avenue, Verona. The time and date of this meeting were included in the annual meeting notice posted in the Community Center and sent to the official newspaper of the Township, the Verona Cedar Grove Times, at least 48 hours preceding the start of this meeting. The agenda and instructions on how to comment will be provided at the appropriate time. All meetings are recorded. Those wishing to speak during any public comment period should only provide their name and municipality. Street addresses are not required. Please be advised that should a member of the public choose to state their street address, it will not be redacted from the recording. Mr. Tully.
Here.
Dr. Reese. Here. Dr. Cortez.
Here.
Mr. Ryan.
Here.
Mr. Mathewson.
Here.
Mrs. Murphy Braddix. Mrs. DiBartolo.
Here.
Vice Chair Weston. Chair McGinley.
Here.
Attorney Massera.
Here.
And Township Engineer.
Here.
Let's start with some general information. This board deals with the issuance of variances from the Verona zoning ordinance. That ordinance establishes specific requirements for the land area in the township and regulates not only the uses permitted, but the size of the lots, setbacks required, parking, signs, conditional uses, and numerous other such regulations. An applicant is never entitled to a variance. Applicants must meet specific criteria contained in the state municipal land use law by satisfying certain legal standards of proof. The burden is on the applicants to show that they should be granted the specific relief requested. Depending on the type of variance requested, applicants will need to prove special reasons, undue hardship, a balance of benefits, and other criteria. These are legal proceedings. Public meeting notices have been published, neighbors have been notified, applicants and their representatives will provide sworn testimony and be subject to cross-examination. Any action this board takes at this meeting will be memorialized in a resolution document prepared by our legal counsel that will be reviewed and adopted typically at our next regular meeting. At that time, any variances granted will become effective. That said, we are a board that conducts its business in a fairly informal manner. Applicants are sworn in, tell us what they want to do with their property and what they are asking the board to do. Board members will question witnesses, and then members of the public may question those witnesses. At the conclusion of the testimony, members of the public may make a statement regarding the application. After closing the public portion of the application, the board will deliberate and render a decision. If you're following along, we are up to item E on the agenda, approval of minutes. Minutes from our regular meeting of March 13th, 2025 have been distributed. All board members hopefully have had a chance to review.
I'll make a motion to approve the 4 minutes from March 13th, 2025.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Two abstentions. So noted, the minutes are approved. Moves on to item F, resolutions. First resolution is 2508, setting the zoning board dates for August through December 2025. That
Mr. Chairman,
includes,
I'll move the acceptance of the
thank you.
resolution.
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That doesn't count. Okay, we move on to Resolution 2509, 15 Wilton Terrace, approving the swimming pool installation.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Good, thank you.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
2, 3. 3 abstentions. Resolution only needs 1 vote to approve, right?
That's correct.
Okay, resolution number 25-10, 61 Hillside Avenue, an attached single-frame garage in the side yard.
I'll move that resolution, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, second?
I will second.
All. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
3 abstentions. All right, that moves us down to new business. And the first item under new business is an extension of time request for 770 Bloomfield Avenue. Case was memorialized August 10, 2022. It's the application that was going to extend the self-storage property on Bloomfield Avenue. In accordance with the letter of March 4th, 2025, from Mr. Trembulac, their attorney, they'd like to request a 1-year extension. Municipal land use law says that's certainly a possibility. So I would entertain a motion to extend that 1 year as requested.
Question for Mr. Massera. In terms of the timing, so that was memorialized in, you said August?
August.
Of 22.
It'll be extended for 1 year from the memorialization, not from this evening. It's 2 years. You get 2,
So it goes to 24,
Right.
I said,
and they're looking for it to be till August of 25.
okay.
August of 25, right.
Okay, so it was already past the statute of limitations or whatever it is, right?
Right.
No, it's not a statute, it's not a statute of limitations. The board certainly has authority to grant the extension.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Okay.
Regardless of whether you sat on the first application or not, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Or if you approved it,
I'm sorry?
or if you voted for approval, regardless of if you voted for approval?
Yeah, this would be a separate request, so
Okay,
any member of the board would be able to
Okay.
extend it.
okay, I'll make a motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Good. All right, takes us to our second application on the agenda this evening. Application 2024-26, 176 Grove Avenue. If you'd be so kind as to come up to the table. You would remain standing. I think council will swear you in.
Mr. Tremblay, make his appearance first, please.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Alan Trembulac appearing on behalf of the applicants, Jonathan and Michelle Lampkin.
Mr. Lampkin, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Jonathan Lampkin, 4 Shawnee Road, Short Hills, New Jersey.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might?
You may.
So I have a seat. Well, first of all, I want to thank the board for approving the extension request for 770 Bloomfield Avenue. My clients fully intend to proceed with that project, as I indicated in my letter, soon as financial conditions improve, which might be a while, but hopefully sooner rather than later.
Mr. Chairman, I need to interrupt you 1 second. Just for the record, the application was deemed complete, notice was sufficient, so we are ready to proceed.
Okay. So this is a minor subdivision application involving property located at 176 Grove Avenue. We also require a D variance, as I'll explain briefly in a few minutes, which is why this board, rather than the planning board, has jurisdiction over this subdivision application, which, as you know, would normally be heard by the planning board, except where a D variance is involved. So again, the property we're discussing this evening is at 176 Grove Avenue, which is a exceptionally large lot located in the R-60 zoning district. The property contains 41,759 square feet of lot area. The minimum required lot size in the R-60 zoning district is 7,200 square feet. So we're almost 6 times the minimum lot size requirement in the zone. The property is also unusual in that it's a very long and narrow lot. We're only 100 feet wide at Grove Avenue, but the property extends, over 400 feet in depth. Property currently contains a relatively modest two-family dwelling located about 54 feet from Grove Avenue in the front of the property. We're seeking to subdivide the property into 2 lots. The proposed new lot would be located to the rear of the existing lot, and if approved, presumably a house would be constructed, again, in the rear of the existing property on the newly subdivided lot. We're proposing in the subdivision to create 2 new lots. One would be 20,577 square feet in lot area, and the other one would be 21,183 square feet. So each of the proposed subdivided lots would almost be triple the minimum lot area for required in this zoning district. We're also proposing for the new lot, as well as the existing lot for that matter, to be accessed from Grove Avenue via a common or shared driveway, approximately 18 feet in width, which again would provide access for vehicles coming and going, but also provide access for emergency vehicles to access the new house that would be constructed in the rear if the subdivision is approved. The application requires 2 variances. The first variance, as I mentioned, is a D variance because of the fact that the existing building on this property is a non-conforming 2-family dwelling. And under New Jersey law, when you seek to reduce the size of a lot that contains a non-conforming use, the reduction in size is considered to be an expansion of the non-conforming use, basically because you've now got a 2-family use on a smaller piece of property, and that therefore, it's expanding the non-conforming use, which is a D variance. I'm sure the board has heard, a number of those applications over the years. The second variance is for the width of the driveway at the curb line. We're proposing an 18-foot wide driveway, again, to be shared by the 2 subdivided lots and to provide more than adequate means for emergency vehicles to access the lot in the rear, which would contain a newly constructed single-family house. Your ordinance provides that driveway width at the curb line is limited to, I think, 14 feet for one-way traffic, 16 feet for two-way traffic. We're proposing 18 feet. We can easily reduce that width at the curb line, and candidly, we can make the driveway as narrow or as wide as the board feels is necessary. I think 18 feet is more than enough to accommodate a large fire truck. And again, that's a simple variance, I think, that we can easily eliminate if the board wishes. The third, it's technically not a variance, but we do need relief from the state statute, which requires that all buildable lots are required to have frontage on a public road or a public street. And the lot in the rear that we're proposing would not meet that requirement. However, the state statute allows for the Board of Adjustment to grant, I don't think they really call them variances, but it's essentially a variance, even though it's not from a zoning requirement, it's a variance from the state statute, which again, can be granted, and under the statute and under the case law, the real concern there is emergency vehicle access and safety, to be able to get to a property that doesn't have frontage on a public street. We're proposing, easy access through this common driveway that's being proposed. So that's the third relief we're seeking. The last thing I want to mention preliminarily before I call my first witness is, we're at 170 Grove Street. The board may recall hearing an application about a year and a half ago involving the property immediately next door to this property at 170 Grove, which is a lot remarkably similar in size and dimensions to our lot. That property came before you because the owner of the property was seeking to expand one of three houses on the property. It's a single lot with three houses, apparently a legal non-conforming use that goes back in time. Again, that's right next to our property. We're proposing to add a second structure in the rear, and we've got a neighbor that's got a similar property with three separate houses, three separate dwelling units, also accessed by one regular-sized driveway off of Grove Avenue. So there's remarkable similarities between the two properties, and again, this board approved an application about a year and a half ago to allow one of those three houses on the property next door to be expanded. All right, having said that, I'm going to, I have two witnesses tonight. I have my client with some very brief testimony, and following his testimony, we'll have Matt Flynn from John McDonough's office to provide professional planning testimony in support of the relief we're seeking. So, Mr. Lampkin's already been sworn in. Yes. Okay. John, are you one of the owners of the property at 176 Grove Avenue?
I am, sir.
Okay, and you own that with your wife, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and when did you purchase that property?
3 years ago.
Okay. And am I correct that the property contains an existing structure which has two dwelling units?
Yes.
Okay. Do you live in the house?
I don't.
Okay, it's a rental property.
For now, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And you're seeking to, obviously before the board, because you'd like to subdivide that property, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. If the application is approved by the board, what are your plans with respect to the property, particularly the subdivided lot?
Well, I've already spoken to a few architects, but they told me they didn't want to draw up the plans yet until the subdivision was approved, because they didn't want me to spend $20,000 on plans until the subdivision was approved.
But do you plan to construct a new house on the subdivided lot yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And do you have any plans to expand the existing building?
Not at all.
Okay. Are you aware that there may be some trees that might need to be removed to accommodate the proposal?
I don't think there's any trees that have to be removed, but if the town tells me we have to remove a tree, we'll remove it.
Okay. And you're aware that the town has a tree removal ordinance and that you would have to comply with that ordinance in the event that any trees needed to be removed?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have really for Mr. Lampkin.
Board have any questions for Mr. Lampkin?
So given that, excuse me, given that the existing is two-family, presumably what's in the back can also be two-family, right?
No, I'm not looking to put a two-family in. I'm just looking to put a single family.
But what we grant is that extension, no? The extension of the use variance, right?
It would be an extension of the existing house that's used as a two-family. So because of the exacerbation of the non-conforming use, even though there is no change or proposed change to that two-family, the lot of which it's on will become smaller if this is approved. So that requires approval from this board. So historically, that at one time was a permitted two-family. The zone changed, and it grandfathered in that it can remain as a two-family. It can remain on the two-family provided that the configuration of the lot does not change. Even if the applicant were proposing to take off 10 feet of that to convey to a neighbor or whatever, they would still need a variance, basically a reinforcement of the permission that they already have to leave that two-family there.
But I also want to make it clear, because I think this may have been part of your question, Mr. DiBartolo. We would only be allowed to construct a one-family dwelling on the new lot in the rear. We would need a variance, which we're not seeking, to do another two-family. It would be a new one-family house in the rear, which complies with the requirement of the zoning district.
Thank you.
So there will ultimately be 3 dwelling units, if you wish, which coincidentally is the same as what we have right next door, except that theirs are in 3 houses.
And next door is single-family.
There are 3 single families,
Designated as
which
single-family.
really makes it a 3-family use in 3 different dwellings. But,
Mr. Chairman, a question for the applicant. If the variance is approved, obviously, to build another single-family home there, is your intention to then sell it or rent it at that point in time? Or will you continue the entire lot as a rental property?
When I was good, is this for me or for?
yeah.
Well,
for you.
yes, that would be for you.
No, so if it's approved.
Yes.
We're gonna hire an architect and see what's allowed to be built, and then we're gonna weigh out our options.
So in other words,
So you haven't really decided yet what you
you
want?
could,
No, I just saw the next door neighbor has, 5 structures on the land, and I said, maybe I'll just try to get it subdivided, and maybe my wife and I might move there, maybe we might sell it, we don't know yet. I don't know what I can build there yet, because I didn't know what the town's or.
No, I understand why you didn't want to, I got that point, why you didn't want to invest the money until you knew you could get the variance. But I guess I'm asking you to speculate, okay, if we approved you building the house there, your intention, you don't really know yet whether you would sell it or just try to rent it at this point. Is that a correct summation?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, that should not be part of the board's determination of whether to grant approval or to deny. It's based on land use, and land use law is clear that there should be no distinction between ownership and rental of properties.
I have a question of the attorney. If we grant this request, will the existing two-family house continue to be a pre-approved, a non-conforming use?
Well, for me, yes, that's why
So
you would be granting endorsement of that, essentially.
There couldn't be any changes made to that two-family house unless they came.
Unless they came back, absolutely.
Right.
Can you discuss the easement that'll be required for the driveway to permit the second house or second property to access the road through it?
Sure. It would be a permanent easement that would be recorded, which would allow both properties to utilize the driveway, for ingress and egress to each of the two properties. Pretty simple, really. But it would be, again, reciprocal easement in perpetuity to ensure access to the lot in the rear, most importantly. And that would have to be, obviously, the document that would be subject to the review and approval of Mr. Massara, the condition of approval. We haven't prepared it yet, but it would be a pretty standard reciprocal shared driveway easement.
So along with like a shared driveway, what about utilities, waste? How is that planned to make it to, is this another type of variance because you're coming through another person's property?
We don't-
That would be an agreement between the property owner, easement or whatever.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Matthews, and there would be, there would need to be easements allowing utilities and perhaps other facilities to cross over the lot in the front. It would be some sort of blanket easement to allow that, because of course, the easement would be done at the time my client owns both properties, so he can provide for, liberality and, flexibility there, so.
So I believe I had heard that 18 feet in width is a good width for fire department and whatnot, right? But yet you're willing to reduce that up at the front?
Well,
That's still sufficient?
we'd like to leave the driveways up at 18 feet. I think the width of an average fire truck is 12 feet. And your ordinance, we're allowed to have an 18-foot driveway, but it's only supposed to, I guess it's really a regulation on the curb cut that's supposed to be only 14 feet at the curb line. So, we could comply with that and have it 14 feet and then just have the driveway widened,
Will we be hearing testimony from an engineer?
We don't have an engineering, we don't have an engineer, we have a planner.
Okay, right, because there's a big tree at that corner right there that is not shown on this plan. I'm also just wondering,
It's actually like a bush, there's like a little shed there, and there's like just like a bush in front of the shed.
Further back, right at the front.
You're talking about?
Yeah.
You're talking about the very front of the property by
Yeah.
Grove Avenue?
Behind the white picket fence.
No, that wouldn't be much.
We could easily avoid, I don't think it would affect that tree. I mean, we could shift the driveway over a little bit if the board wanted us to preserve that tree in its current location, or we could even relocate the tree if necessary, but.
And the easement is where it's located just because of where the curb cut is, correct? You're
Well,
just
yeah,
extending that
and where the existing driveway is too.
Instead of moving the entirety of the thing
Right.
north or something like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, we could also, if we wanted to, have created a second driveway, but I don't think that's good for a variety of reasons,
And since we've mentioned the house next door several times with the three buildings, have you compared it with the width of their driveway?
I have. It's like the same size, and there's not 3 structures next door.
There's 5.
There's 5
Well,
structures.
but the
We'll
three
go with
houses.
3 houses.
I went there myself yesterday to take another look at that, Mr. Chairman. I didn't take out a tape measure, but both driveways on our property and the adjacent property currently appear to be the same width. We're proposing to widen our driveway to make, but again, if the board wants to limit that, I think we need, again, a minimum of 12 feet.
So since we're not going to hear any testimony from an engineer, can you describe the rainwater coming down? Do you have any, water issues in the basement of the existing dwelling or in the garage?
It's a question for me?
Yeah.
I haven't had, since I've owned the property, there hasn't been one issue with any drainage, we haven't had any water issues like whatsoever. Because in that unit, there's a washer and dryer that's in the basement, and there's actually like a full basement as well, and there's never been a problem down there.
So just on that subject, we have a report from Boswell Engineering, and we don't have any issues with anything in Boswell's report. We know we have to, if and when the second lot is developed, we would have to satisfy Boswell with respect to drainage, stormwater management, and comply with all of the local and state regulations.
The little shed on the side of going up the driveway, is that on your lot or is that on the adjoining lot?
That's on
That's
my
yours.
lot.
Okay.
And right now, the only thing it's used for is like storage. That's like one of my tenants uses for like her kids' toys and bikes and things like
Okay.
that.
Okay. But, so you're just, there's no need to change that structure?
I mean, I'd keep it there if I could, but I mean, the garage is pretty big, and the two tenants share the garage, and there's a lot of storage, and there's actually a top area where they put things. So, I mean, that was just there when I bought it, so
Okay.
the lady liked it, so she goes, "You got me get rid of it." I said, "No, keep it."
But I mean, your new plan, if approved,
No, okay.
that should not interfere with anything you intend on doing with the new structure, correct?
That would remain. Yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps I missed something here, but are these driveways, the two driveways that you proposed here, are they shared driveways with both of the properties? Do both of these houses use these two
No,
driveways?
my house has just one driveway, and I have two different tenants that live there, and they share the driveway.
Okay.
So that's
but-
my unit. The unit next door has their own driveway off. That's not, nothing to do with me.
No, I'm talking about you have two driveways proposed here.
Well, actually, isn't it one driveway
So
that
we're just gonna widen it to make it,
widen
to
it,
comply with the
Okay,
safety
thank you.
issues.
that would then be shared by the house in the front and the new house in the rear?
So the garage, I did take a quick look at the property because I like to look at things spatially. The garage is sort of, as you come up the driveway, sort of off to the left? Am I correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
The
and,
garage will not be affected. It will not be
okay,
moved.
but so no one right now is permitted to actually park in the driveway. Is that an accurate statement?
No, I mean, I have two tenants that live there, and I
Right.
mean, one of the tenants has two children that have cars, and then the other tenant has one car, so I mean, there's four cars in the driveway or the garage at any given time.
Okay, so they have to jockey, so right now they're
But there's
jockeying.
actually a little area
That's,
also.
there's like
There's a little thing in
there's
the
a little,
slide behind
a little
the
hook, I'll call it, where they.
Correct. And that's
Okay.
where I guess when they turn around, and like if I go by the house I have to help them with something, I usually park right behind there.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking the question, and once again, presuming that we approve the next structure, with a fire truck going down, let's say, I want to make sure that if you're continuing just to extend the existing driveway, am I correct? Okay. So there would have to be to me, a prohibition then, though, from anybody parking in that.
The next application for sure.
Yeah, okay, but, I mean, I'm just
I
trying to.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it was listed in the Boswell report to present testimony and show on the plan where the required number of parking spaces would be located. I'm not saying that here, I have not heard that there, and I think that to me is one of the biggest concerns is, if this is the whole premise, it was mentioned numerous times, emergency access and justification for it, I still have not yet heard anything to quell my concern about that driveway being opened at all times.
Right.
So, Mr. Chairman, from what you're saying is that's not our problem now, but I don't know, I didn't necessarily agree with you. Could you put that in it, if you approve that, could you put that in it as a condition, that, approval, that no parking in that, whatever designated area, that common drive, I'll call it, for lack of a better way of putting it?
That's no problem whatsoever, and I think that would also be something that would kind of be self-enforcing, because, I mean, the
Mr.
neighbor to
Tremulak, I've
neighbor-
learned after many years of
no,
doing
no.
these things, there's nothing that's, could be presumed to be unimportant. Yes, or self-enforcing.
Totally agree, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, that would be upon, again, assuming if the board were to approve this, upon construction of the house in the rear. Correct? So, I mean, it wouldn't be, if the board were to approve this tomorrow, that they would be prohibited from parking in the driveway.
Correct.
Right, okay.
And I guess just for my own clarification, once again, assuming approval, the next step would basically be up to the building department to determine, maybe looking at the Boswell report, whatever.
Yes.
To determine what permits would be required, what,
Without question.
okay,
And Boswell would have to approve
improve that as well. So,
as well.
once again, I also say this sometimes for the edification of people sitting here tonight, just so I don't like to presume that everybody knows what's going on.
Sure.
Do any other board members have questions for the owner at this time? Is there anyone from the public who has a question of the owner on the testimony that he's presented this evening? Seeing none,
Okay, my next witness is Matt Flynn.
Mr. Flynn, your name and business address for the record, please.
Matthew Flynn, Flynn, 101 Gibraltar Drive, Morris Plains, New Jersey.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Matt, why don't you begin by providing your educational background and your professional qualifications for the board?
Sure. I have my professional planner's license in the state of New Jersey. I have my national licensure, which is the AICP license. My education comes from Rutgers. I have my master's degree in planning and public policy. All my licenses are good standing.
When were you licensed in the state of New Jersey?
2020.
Okay. And what is your current business affiliation?
John McDonough Associates.
All right, that's a professional planning firm?
Yes.
Okay. I'd offer Mr. Flynn as an expert in the field of professional planning. Board accept his qualifications? Okay. Thank you. All right, Matt, you're familiar with this application, obviously?
I am.
Okay, and you want to just perhaps explain what you've done in preparation for your testimony this evening, and then proceed to review the proposed subdivision plan with the board.
Excuse me, Mr. Flynn, can you just turn your microphone on?
You gotta hit it. It doesn't stay on.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. In preparation for this hearing, I obviously looked at the subject property. We went out there. We took some photographs, which I'll distribute in just a moment. I've also looked at, obviously, the zoning ordinance as well as the surrounding context that this site is located in. As council mentioned at the outset, this is a pretty unique piece of property. We are just under 6 times the minimum lot area in the zone. So I would characterize this as being a substantially oversized lot, especially when we look at most of the other properties in the immediate area. Obviously, zoning is really all about ensuring compatibility between properties, between land uses. And so when we have a property that stands out in this regard, it does sort of present us with a unique situation. Thankfully, again, like council mentioned, we do have that lot right next door to look at in terms of what would be compatible. Again, in terms of size and shape, and we'll see in my exhibit that I'll pass out, it is a pretty similar lot. And I think what we're proposing this evening is right on par with not only in terms of the density, but also just in terms of the general layout of the properties. In terms of the zoning requirements, again, this is a substantially oversized lot, and I think that allows us to really meet all of the bulk requirements. Even after we strike that subdivision line, the existing dwelling still meets pretty much all bulk controls aside from one side setback variance. Lot coverage, I think, is probably the main one in this regard, since we are making the lot smaller. We still comply with lot coverage, building coverage, all of the setbacks aside from that one side setback, and the like.
And that's an
yeah,
existing nonconformity, the side setback.
It is, right. Right.
We're not creating that as part of this proposal. But-
Correct, yeah. And
Okay.
I was just going to mention also that, again, as council mentioned, we are not touching the existing home, so what you see is what you get. Another nice thing about this application is that in the future, assuming this application gets approved, any future development would be in the rear of the property, so the streetscape would remain pretty much as we have it today with that existing dwelling. That's going to remain the same right there in the front of the property. The only reason that we're before this board, again, is because we do have that D2 expansion of a non-conforming use variance. But again, that non-permitted use, being the two-family dwelling that's there now, is not proposed to be changed. So it's really just the result of that subdivision line, making that lot area smaller. In very technical terms, it would be technically intensifying that land use by making the lot smaller. So with that, I think I'll just pass out this exhibit. What are we up to here? Just
A1.
So, oh, yeah, there you go. So for the record, Exhibit A1 is entitled Planning Exhibits for Jonathan Lampkin at 176 Grove Avenue, and it consists of a parcels map with some aerial imagery. And then the next page is a drone photograph taken by my office showing the current condition of the property. I'll just let that get distributed there. So page 1 of Exhibit A1, I've highlighted the property in this bold yellow line, and thanks. And showing the board where that proposed subdivision line is with that dashed line basically cutting through the center of the site. I've also labeled adjacent lot 91, which is that lot that we've been talking about right next door, that has a similar arrangement in terms of buildings going back towards the rear of the property. That's a lot that, again, has 3 dwellings, and here we're proposing 3 dwellings. The other nice thing that I wanted to point out on page 1 here is, again, I keep saying it, this is a substantially oversized lot. If you exclude that neighboring lot 91 and look at all of the other properties, we can see that they are substantially smaller than the one that we are looking at tonight. So just to flip over to page 2, again, this was a drone photograph taken by my office in October 2024. Just pointing out to the board those 3 dwellings on the adjacent property to the left, pointing out the existing dwelling to remain on the subject property, and then that portion in the back that would be the proposed lot 90.02. So with that, we heard that we are in the R60 medium density single family zone. We're proposing a permitted use in the zone, a single family use. Despite the fact that we are requesting a use variance, a D2 variance, again, the new use is going to be permitted single family. The 2 created subdivided lots are substantially conforming in terms of lot area. The one in the front, lot 90.01, that's the one with the existing house. That would be 20,577 square feet. And the one in the back would be 21,183 square feet. Again, still substantially over that minimum requirement of 7,200 square feet, almost triple that minimum requirement. So the relief we're seeking, again, the D2 variance, council mentioned this, I'll say statutory variance from the municipal land use law. Comes from section 35 of the municipal land use law, which says that any newly created lot needs street frontage. And we can see on my page 1 here that the proposed lot does not have street frontage. And I'll get to that in a moment. Also, the access driveway width, again, proposing 18 feet, whereas we're only allowed to go up to 14 feet. So really just to tie all of that into the statutory criteria, I think I'll start with the D2 variance, since that is sort of the biggest variance that we're seeking this evening. Again, we're not talking about a D1 use variance. We're not talking about a brand new use. This is a use that's already there. We're not really touching it. We're just changing that lot line that's out there today. So really the essence of the test comes down to site betterment. How is this an improvement to the property, as opposed to does it fit here, or is it appropriate to this lot in the first place? So in terms of benefits, we look to the municipal land use law. Positive criteria, I think we can look to purpose A, promotion of the general welfare. I think page 1 of my exhibit speaks for itself in terms of compatibility. Here we're talking about a very large lot. By subdividing it, we're still looking at oversized lots. I think this is more compatible with what we get per zoning, also with the neighborhood in general. Also, to provide the opportunity for additional housing opportunities to meet the needs of all New Jersey residents. Purpose G, variety of uses in appropriate locations. Again, we're talking about a lot that's over almost 6 times the zoning requirement. If we looked at it from a pure lot area standpoint, for an area of this size, the zoning really anticipates almost 5 or 6 dwelling units. Here, we're proposing 3 in total. So I would say this isn't overly dense, it's not overdevelopment or anything like that. Purpose I, desirable visual environment. Again, in terms of neighborhood compatibility, we do have, I would say, substantial compatibility with Lot 91 right next door. It does give us some nice guidance as to what might be appropriate on this unique property. Purpose M, efficient use of land. I would say this is infill development. It's not sprawl. We're really taking advantage of an already developed piece of property, and I would say appropriately adding housing stock to an oversized lot. The flip side to that is the negative criteria, no substantial detriment to the public or to the zone. Like I said, lot 90.01 with the existing dwelling will still be substantially compliant from a zoning standpoint. Front setback, side yard as a percent of lot width, rear setback, building height, lot coverage, building coverage, all of that is still going to comply, so it's not going to stand out in the context of the neighborhood. And then, of course, we are looking at a subdivision. We're not proposing a building at this moment, but from a dimensional standpoint, that newly created lot in the back would be conforming in terms of lot area as well as lot width. Like I mentioned, no impact to the streetscape, since what we would be proposing in the future would be in the back. It would be blocked by the existing home. Again, we're not requesting a use variance. We're not requesting a density variance. And the last thing I'll say is the master plan speaks to not disrupting prevailing neighborhood patterns. And I would say this is a specific area where there is not a prevailing neighborhood pattern. We have 2 very overly sized lots, and I think they are going to sync up nice with each other. In terms of that Section 35 variance, that's the lack of street frontage. The nice thing about the MLUL is that the justification for that variance comes from Section 36 of the MLUL. And like Council mentioned, really what the board should be looking at is whether there would be adequate access for emergency vehicles, and I think our plan ensures that there will be with the 18-foot driveway. I guess that's
Speaking of the driveway, do you agree that there's a relatively minor C variance because for the width of the driveway at the curb, which is limited to 14 feet under the ordinance? Do you agree with my comment in the opening that we could, if the board required, reduce the width of the driveway at the curb to comply with the ordinance and still have sufficient width for emergency vehicle access?
Yeah, and I guess to the extent that that's a C variance, I think we can put on the record the C2 test, the benefits of the application as a whole, which I just went through at length, ad nauseum maybe, are significantly outweighed by any potential detriments. In this case, again, this really comes down to safety. If the board feels that this would be a detriment, having the extra 4 feet, we'd be willing to narrow that down to the board's discretion, but really it comes down to safety, so we feel that the benefit of having that is outweighs any detriment. So really, that's pretty much it. I think when we look at what's happening around this property, this is a unique lot, and when we look at what's appropriate here, I think we need look no further than what's happening right next door, similar size and shape, and really, I think, continuing that trend. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay.
The board have any questions for our planner? Who gave a very thorough explanation. Kevin, were you coming up with one?
Don't know what this. I'm not shy, Mr. Chairman, you know that. If I had a question,
I didn't want you to feel overlooked. If there's no one from the board who has a question of our planner, is there anyone from the public who has a question of our planner on the testimony that he's presented? Good. The first person we've had so far. Our rules are, you need to come up to the microphone, give us your name, and confirm you're from Verona. You don't need to give a street address if you don't want to. And you may direct your questions to the planner at this time.
I'm Julie Parker, Verona. You were talking about compatibility with the surrounding properties, but you did not talk at all about the couple of properties on the other side of 176 Grove. Is there a reason that you didn't?
I would say that those properties are much closer to what the zoning prescribes. So when we look at a property like that, it's much easier to tell what's appropriate. In this case, it's sort of...
Do you have the information on the sizes of those properties here?
I could pull them up.
I think that those two properties are both also quite large with single-family homes and much more open land. So I guess I'm asking from a planning standpoint, do you typically only look at the property on one side of your subject property to determine compatibility?
No, I would say I did take into account the whole neighborhood.
So you have you think it's not relevant that the two properties on the other side are similarly large and open with only one single-family home on them?
Well, I would disagree that the properties across the street are
not across the
similarly
street,
large.
next to 176. On the opposite side, it goes 170, 176, and there's at least two more properties there that are significantly larger than the minimum for an R60 zone and have a single-family home on them. So my question is really to the extent that you're discussing compatibility, why are you only focused on a pre-existing non-conforming use on one side of the property?
Well, in terms of the shape of the two properties, I think it speaks for itself that Lot 91 and Lot 90 are almost identical in shape.
Yeah, but 170 is a pre-existing non-conforming use, a legal pre-existing non-conforming use. And that's why it has more buildings on it. So my question is really, when you're considering compatibility, the properties on the other side are single family and do not have that unusual pre-existing nonconformity, but your discussions seem to be very focused on basing compatibility on a pre-existing nonconformity rather than what's on the other side of the property.
How do we know that that's a legal pre-existing nonconformity?
We know because I own it.
Okay, so you own
170.
170? Okay, and did you get a variance for 170?
For the pre-existing nonconformity?
For the house, the new house in the back?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so it's not a pre-existing?
No, there were variances related to height of the building, not for the house. The house was there. There were 3 single-family
Okay,
homes
so that
on this
would be
property.
legal? Okay.
And we have a letter from the town from when we purchased that property in 1999, 2000, confirming that. So it is a legal pre-existing nonconformity. My point is, it's being heavily relied on here to suggest compatibility, but there's been no discussion of the properties on the other side of 176 that are single-family, and the lots are significantly larger than the R60 minimum. And I'm just trying to understand why.
So I can tell you that adjacent, well, I think the board has the exhibit in front of them, directly adjacent to lot 90 to the page right. You do have 2 smaller lots, but I think she's referring to the flag lot that sort of starts right beyond that and then extends. If we were talking about that lot, if you were to propose a building in the back there, you would be proposing a building that's behind two other single-family dwellings. And then you, of course, also have the other single-family dwelling right next to that that's on that lot that she's referring to. So, I mean, it's a totally different situation, I would say. I still would fall back on the fact that it makes better planning sense to compare this to the lot 91.
So from a planning perspective, you would typically focus on a pre-existing nonconformity to create another nonconformity, essentially.
No.
But okay, well, to me, it seems like that's what's happening here. And then one other question I had is you talk about the size of the lot and it being possible to put 5 or 6 units on it, given the R60. And since I am familiar with the one next to it, I kind of wanted to question that, because suggesting that and then saying, well, I'm only going to have 2, maybe a little misleading, because, again, from a planning perspective, how could you possibly do that on that lot? You can't put streets in there, you can't put in 5 driveways. I mean, that's not really a real figure, I don't think, is it? To say you could do 5 or 6 houses there?
Mm-hmm. Well, my testimony was that for strictly looking at lot area, not like discounting lot shape for just a second, when we look at lot area, the zoning anticipates up to 5 or 6 dwellings. So from a density standpoint, we're okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't have anything else.
Thank you.
If there's someone else from the public, you need to come up to the microphone, give us your name, confirm that you're from Verona, and ask the question of the applicant.
George Kozacek from Verona. On the driveway, how many pieces of apparatus would be able to get to the back house? If you need more than one, can you fit more than one? And then the other question I have is, are fire trucks allowed to go onto a private driveway like that? Are they supposed to stay on the street and fight the fire? If you were to pull in and you had a bunch of equipment behind that truck, and then you had a situation, now you have to back all those vehicles out to get the main truck that's fighting the fire back out. There's no turnarounds, correct?
Well, to answer your first question, you have 220 feet of length before you get to the...
Oh, by first, I should have asked a question. The driveway, does it go from the front all the way to the back? Does it go from the front of the property, from the street, all the way to the back of the property? No. Or does it end somewhere?
Our plan this evening has it ending at that proposed shared property line.
How many feet is that?
It's the 220 feet.
So 220 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then how many pieces of equipment do you think you would be able to fit there if you needed to have, more than one?
I don't.
There's no way to turn around or anything like that?
Well,
I
fire
mean-
trucks would typically back out
I-
wherever.
I don't know.
I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but I will say that in the back of the existing house, there is a asphalt area that will remain. So it provides a little bit of extra width for whatever might be needed in that area.
Okay, and then also for the utilities, that becomes a public right-of-way also, or no?
No.
Because it's utilities there? Aren't all utilities, if they're in line somewhere, it's public land where you put utilities, correct?
On the street, yes, but not on the private property, unless there's a specific utility easement to the utility
But
code,
you were just talking about an easement before.
from the property owner to property owner.
Oh, okay, gotcha, all right, great. All right, great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just for your edification of the public, the plans were shown to our fire official, before we got it, and we didn't receive any concerns back to the board about the issue that you just raised. Just wanted you to be aware of it.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to ask a question of our planner?
Good evening, Dan De Palma, Verona. So my question would be that the square footage of the flag lot, when you take into consideration the setbacks that the zoning board already has in place for the township of Verona, you had mentioned that the area of the flag lot's approximately 21,000 square feet. So if you use the setbacks that are currently in place with the township, then what is the buildable area that you have left, and what size house do you think you could build on that?
First of all, it's not a flag lot technically. There's no flag pole. So I don't know if you want to take a look at.
Or wouldn't the driveway be the flagpole?
Technically not, because it's an easement, it's not a lot. It's
Okay.
not part of the lot.
I can live with the technicality.
Yeah, so,
I'm not sure what the setback is.
yes.
Is it 10 feet, 15 feet, what is it?
The required setback to a front yard and backyard are 30 feet each.
30 feet, okay,
And for the side yards, we need 10 on one side, 8 on the other.
okay.
And based on our plan, we can easily fit a building in that envelope.
What size building?
Well, I haven't done the math of that, but we could easily fit one that's exactly the same size, just as a totally hypothetical example.
Okay, so what's the square footage of the buildable area that's left? Taking into consideration the
I don't
setbacks?
I
No,
don't
you don't
have
have it? Okay.
Shown on the subdivision plan that's been submitted, if you've seen it, it shows a building envelope, and the building envelope is rather large.
Okay,
and would
But that's not
accommodate-
also, that's just within the confines of the setbacks. So the lot coverage itself is actually maxed out at 25%. So you're only allowed to develop 25% of this lot, regardless
Right.
of what the buildable area per the setbacks are.
right. So then, there's a size in accordance with what that equals.
It may limit the size,
Yeah,
but whatever house would be built would have to meet the requirements, setbacks, coverage, et cetera.
okay.
But it's adequate for.
So we don't have that readily available.
It's not something, we show the permitted building envelope, but we don't have a
Okay.
house, we're not asking.
Mr. Tremblay, could you show Mr. De Palma on the map, the building envelope?
Do you have the printout? Yeah. So this is the site plan, just for everyone's reference. The pink area is the building envelope. There's actually not a nick, that's a mistake.
But that doesn't take into consideration the setback.
It does, actually, it does. Because the black line is the lot itself.
Okay.
So as you can see, it's clearly, I would say, large enough to accommodate a home.
Okay. I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Come up.
Hello, Sharon O'Donnell, Verona. There was just one inconsistency that I would appreciate it if you could clear it up. The gentleman who came before me said referenced this lot as a flag lot, and it's right here written that it's a flag lot, yet the planner said that it's not. Could you clear that up for me? It's in the agenda, it says that it is.
I know that, I did notice that, it is not a flag lot.
So what are all these recommendations based on? A flag lot or not a flag lot? Because right here it says flag lot.
We're not calling it a flag lot. I don't know what you're referring to.
Right here on the agenda, so that's why I'm just asking for some clarity on how that can happen.
And you'd have to ask the person.
Oh,
who prepared
okay.
the
Well,
agenda,
that's what-
But
yeah.
I can give you an explanation also. We had previously filed an application with the planning board,
Mm-hmm,
which proposed a flag lot, but because of the jurisdictional issue that came up,
mm-hmm.
because of the existing two-family, it became clear that we had to come before this board, okay? And when we filed a new application with this board, we also made some changes from the plan that had been presented to
Right.
the planning board, which was a flag lot. So I think it was probably just a clerical error.
Okay, so if we were to go back on any other documents or anything about this case, would flag lot be mentioned?
Not for this application, no.
Okay.
We never proposed a flag lot as part of this application.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the public who'd like to ask a question of this witness? Paul?
All right, I wasn't going to, Paul Petrangeli, Verona. I wasn't going to say anything, but all right, I'm a surveyor, so I deal with flag lots and easements. A flag lot is basically when you have a lot and you have access or a parcel, part of that lot that goes with it. This is not a flag lot. It's one land, one property line, and you have an easement. On that easement, you can
Mr.
call it...
Petraglia, do you have a question?
No.
Okay.
That's it. I agree with subdividing a lot because Verona has plenty of these houses in the back.
Question mark.
We always appreciate Mr. Petrangeli's educational components. Anyone else actually have a question for this applicant? Seeing none, Counselor?
We have no further witnesses or evidence to present. Thank you.
Okay. Then at this time...
If that's the case, if there's no other witnesses, I do want to bring up something that the Environmental Commission brought up, which is that there's an endangered species or something. I read it online, but I still don't have the printout actually of the VEC comments.
That wouldn't be part of this application, because they're not proposing to build or to, they're just proposing the subdivision at this point.
Well, I feel like I somewhat disagree with that, because if it takes out, if these are located in the back of this property, it takes out the ability for us to grant, a decent sized subdivision. It's a consideration that the board should have in their back pocket.
We have the Environmental Commission report. We're familiar with that issue. First of all, it's a very small triangular piece of the property, number one. Number two, it's not an endangered species. It's talking about wood turtles, which are considered threatened species. I'm not aware of any regulation anywhere in state statutes or otherwise that would prevent us from utilizing a portion of that property. I read the state statutes, the New Jersey Endangered and Non-Game Species Conservation Act, which there's restrictions against, catching, trapping, killing animals on that. But again, they're endangered species. This is a lesser category of threatened species, and there's no limitations that I'm aware of. Particularly with the subdivision application, we're not proposing to build anything in that area. And if there was a rule that prevented us from building in that area, then I assume the building department would call that out when an application was made to build a house in the back. But it's not grounds to prevent a subdivision. And I can also say, it's a very small area that even if we had to not disturb that area, it would still allow for a reasonably sized house to be constructed on the subdivided lot.
Council's concluded testimony. It would be appropriate at this time, if there is anyone from the public who would like to make a statement on this particular application before the board goes into deliberation.
Paul Petrangeli, Verona. I live in the landing section, and most of the landing section has homes, just like my neighbor, where they have a single driveway going back to their house behind my single-family home. They have their home back there. Fire trucks, everything, never an issue. I agree. Subdivide the lot.
That's it. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to make a statement about this application? Seeing none, I would close the public portion and open it to board deliberation. As far as we can see, there appear to be 3 variances that are required or requested. Let's start with, how about we start with the driveway? Starting there. Anybody have any strong feelings that that driveway is anything but 16 feet wide? We call it a double drive. You can have a curb cut of 16 feet.
I mean, as long as there's,
What is the
sorry.
purpose of having it only 14 feet?
That's engineering.
That's the ordinance. I know.
I think it has to do with not being able to just bring in multiple cars into your driveway all at once and then taking up all that type of real estate. So this way you plan out your property correctly for that driveway. So I know that, which brings up the point, and I know you said that you wouldn't be doing that, but to make sure that no cars remain in that parking lot, I guess that's a part of a lease requirement that I guess would have to be drawn up.
However, it needs to be memorialized.
Yeah.
And I think we would also include something
Yeah.
like that in the reciprocal easement that would be drafted to make it clear to anyone.
I mean, if it's currently 16 feet, I don't see any reason, if we do go ahead and approve the D variance, I don't see any reason why we would want them to narrow the driveway. So I would just be in favor of just leaving it the way it is. I mean, that would be my.
Mr. Chairman, you will need, as you know, but just for the record, county planning board approval. It's county road.
Yeah.
What does a fire, can anybody tell me, what does a fire truck need? A 16 foot? 15 foot?
As Kathleen had said, Chief Gifford has passed on this and said the plan was acceptable. So I don't know what it needs, but the chief said it's good.
That's why I brought the issue up during my questioning. It's, the fire department said it was okay by not commenting on it. And, I just don't see the need to narrow it to conform. I mean, I know technically we have to vote on that, but, I mean, if we were going to approve, and I keep saying if we decide to approve the D variance, correct me if I'm wrong, and we would have to approve this variance just to leave it the way it is, to see the. Yeah.
The applicant's proposing 18.
Yeah.
How tall are fire trucks? How tall are they?
How tall are
You have some very, very heavy overhead wires right here that go right across that driveway.
I can tell you that because I looked up in preparation for the meeting. The average width is 12 feet, and I think and I can tell you. The wires are across the street. Oh.
depending on the wires.
11 to 12.5.
ChatGPT says 9.14.
Just so you know, you were talking.
What'd I say?
Not all fire trucks are the same.
If you were looking at page 2 of my exhibit, is that what you were, the wires that you're seeing, I believe are on the other side of the street.
No, yeah, it's connected to the corner of the existing house. I mean, I noticed it this morning when I went past, but, I mean, that's something that obviously the applicant would have to.
It's in the small picture on the plans that were distributed.
I mean, it's a small, I mean, the applicant would have to just vet that.
Just my thoughts on that is, I mean, you're going in the order of like the driveway first before the use case, but a lot, and just because everything was wrapped up into it, so I'm going to codify my statement here. The lot that was used as an example right now is one consistent lot, the one that's marked 91 here on this map. The other lot, not heavily discussed, the actual flag lot 87, was separated, and it has its own independent driveway for that usage. What I'm not understanding here is, and I guess, maybe it was, separately considered, is this is a medium density area, separating it for the purposes of, because it was put in the application, building another single family dwelling in the back, which was also what was part of the testimony, to create a shared driveway in a medium density with this much land, which for future uses, sales, and also just creates what was talked about is a condition that exists in very high density parts of Verona. But to create that condition in this area, all this that we're talking about with engines and turnarounds, all this other stuff, it's just really hard for me to kind of grasp that we're setting all this up when it's a lot that was already talked about as being 6 times the width. What was done with the other lot over here was a separate and distinct driveway for that property. That's the struggle that I'm having. We're talking about widening a lot, widening the driveway, this and the other, for a new house to be built to have a shared driveway, which is already a nightmare in other parts of the town. That's the struggle that I'm having.
We can reduce the width of the driveway and leave it the way it is, which is.
That's not my concern. My concern is not the width of the driveway. My concern is having a shared driveway in a lot that big in an area that doesn't necessitate having shared driveways.
It's the same condition, a shared driveway.
The other lot is not a separated lot, is not a separate lot. It's one single lot.
With 3 houses.
It's a single lot.
Understood.
They're not.
Okay, back to discussion. If we're hung up on the driveway, they will leave the driveway as it is. So the driveway issue, the variance is required to change it from a 14 or 16 foot width to 18. That's what they're looking for.
The changing of the driveway is predicated on the use in the back.
Correct. So you want to discuss the use first?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to move back up, let's see, we're going to move back up to A. No, I guess we're not going to move to A because that's the expansion of a non-conforming use, so.
All right, let me throw this out there for the board to digest. So one thing that wasn't testified was about engineering and about the issues that this neighborhood tends to have in terms of flooding, especially on Ann Street, which is kind of across Grove and then down the way. It seems like every application that comes in front of us in this neighborhood has miraculously no flooding or no basement issues with water, and yet that area is like a basin and it floods. So one of my biggest concerns is that this heavily wooded area in the back here is like a gigantic sponge, right? And if we're going to build on that, regardless of any kind of future, measures put in place, we still have to consider that. And to put a driveway that's that long, obviously that would be paved and then to the street. It just, that's something that I think that we need to heavily consider.
If I might just comment on that, that stormwater management is an important consideration when something gets built. And as I said earlier, when an application is made for building permits to construct a house in the back, that will have to be presented to and reviewed by the engineer to make certain that drainage is proper, stormwater management requirements are met. That's part of any building permit application. That's not, in my mind, a valid consideration for purposes of the subdivision. That would be a consideration when something is being built to ensure that drainage is adequate, stormwater is handled properly. And we've already acknowledged that we have that responsibility. We've agreed that the comments in the Boswell report, we would satisfy all those at the appropriate time. Similar comments from the Environmental Commission regarding stormwater management. Valid concerns for sure, but not when we're just talking about drawing a subdivision line.
To the bigger question, I think council just said, we're looking at approving the subdivision line and the concept of reaching the street. I mean, if it's the frontage on a public street requirement that holds us up, that's a valid point. If it is the, if the driveway becomes an issue as to how wide, the whole driveway or whatever, we're still only looking at the part we can see. The curb cut is what we can control according to the ordinance. So the rest of it's controlled by the other factors of how much improvement is on the lot, how much permeable surface is on the lot. But all we can handle at this point is the curb cut and whether or not this lot seems suitable for a subdivision that would create 2 lots of excessive size in that zone. That makes sense?
Well said. I mean, I understand the concerns that have been expressed by my fellow folks here, but I guess the confusion seems to lie in the fact that if we just approve the subdivision, all of these other questions would have to then be addressed by the building department when the application to actually build on the lot is presented. And I think that Mr. Tremblay's point is what he's saying, and he would be willing to, to go by any recommendations in the Boswell report, and then further to that, they're not submitting a plan here. I mean, we're just asking if we can divide the lot. And I think we're going beyond our.
But I still disagree with that assessment, because if we determine based on, the amount of trees or whatever that would need to be taken down to even build on this lot at all, it therefore implies the viability of this application.
If I could just try to give an example. If a lot was 300 by 300 and it was all skunk grass, the DEP wouldn't let somebody build on it, but it certainly would be a subject of an application. And if it was a subdivision by right, this board would have to grant that subdivision if it met all the requirements. Now, the applicant perhaps would never be able to build on it because it's all skunk grass, environmentally sensitive. But the application by right would have to be approved. So if we follow that logic, if the applicant has met his burden, which you can decide whether you think he has or he hasn't, then the application gets approved. As Mr. Ryan has said, and the rest is left to the DEP, the town planning department, and everything like that. But we focus on the municipal land use law the proofs, the lack of proofs, whatever your decision is, and we go from there.
And if I could just add to that, the same would be true with respect to trees. You have a tree ordinance. You know, we have to comply with that. If any trees are to be removed, then we intend to remove as few trees as possible. But with respect to any tree that would be removed, we're allowed to remove trees under your ordinance. We have to comply with the ordinance. We have to comply with all of your ordinances, separate and apart from this approval. Like I've already said, stormwater management, a big one. Any other engineering requirements. All those have to be met.
Okay, so at this point, it's a question of, did the applicant present enough positive proof that this should be done and defer enough of the negatives? We can move the fire truck in, we can move the fire truck out, they can do things for it. Has this applicant presented this one way or the other? And that would be what the vote would be if we were to vote to approve. If there was a motion to approve this application, permitting the subdivision, acknowledging the fact that this is creating it's the extension, it's the increase of a pre-existing non-conforming condition, et cetera, at the current house lot, and setting a number for that curb cut. So if somebody would like to make a
And
motion.
perhaps I just have a question for council. So let's say we go through, everything gets approved, yada, 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 gets subdivided, since we're whatever in terms of our ability to do such as it is. Nothing gets built, it gets divided, such as it is. At what point can the driveway be widened? Is it at the point that something is built, something gets approved to be built, or at the point that it gets subdivided? Can they just go ahead and get an 18-foot wide driveway, never build because of the skunk grass and,
Well, you can make it a condition, but I think, I'm not sure of impervious, pervious, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm just given the current way that it's.
Well, they could widen the driveway tomorrow. They can't widen the curb cut, but they could widen the driveway if they never came here,
I'm saying with the way that this is all framed.
You could make it a condition that they can't widen the driveway or have to narrow the driveway, whatever you wish, but before they construct a house on the rear yard. And only if they construct a house, you can condition it however you think appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so are we anywhere near a motion? Or is more discussion warranted? Lack of discussion doesn't qualify.
I'm persuaded by the argument that was made by Mr. Flynn in that, among other things, in that the applicant intends to build a house and add housing stock to Verona. So that's one of my thoughts about that. And, I think that's helpful.
Okay.
I mean, in terms of the size requirements, I believe that the applicant has shown that the proposed subdivision meets the size requirements for a single-family home in that area. And the other issues that have come up, I think I'm beating a dead horse here, would be then subject to the jurisdiction of the building department, the zoning officials, and when they actually submit the plans. I understand the applicant does not want to go through the expense of, would be nice for us if we actually had a plan, but I don't think we can compel the applicant to spend $25,000 or whatever it is if on the off chance that we might approve it. So I think that's where I think maybe some people are wrestling with it, or stuck with it. I initially was of that mindset, but, I understand their logic to their argument.
Positive criteria.
Positive criteria, and basically, I have to place the trust in the building department, the engineering department, and the zoning people, that when they finally come in with a proposal to build on the lot, that they will do the right thing and make sure that all of the recommendations, once again listed by our engineer, would then have to be applied, by the building department or by the construction officials. But it really would not be the purview of the board. Now, could they come back in and ask, we could go on and on.
Right.
Could they come back in and ask for other variances?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess they could. If they wanted to take that chance, and, that's within their right. But, I don't think we can, deny the variance based upon the supposition that some things might happen that we don't like. So I would tend to go ahead and grant the proposed subdivision. So if this moves the discussion along.
If it moves the discussion along, if there isn't more discussion, could we turn that into a motion? And if we have a motion, could we specify what the driveway curb cut width would be? 16 feet. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm hearing a motion to approve the variances requested, and I believe by restricting the curb cut to 16 feet, we actually remove that variance?
I think so, because it's allowed for two.
And if I'm not mistaken, I heard conditions that the shared driveway easement would be shared with council before the approval.
Right.
And that the utilities, facilities, et cetera, easements would also be a condition of the approval, and that there would be a condition of no parking in the common drive upon the creation of the second property. Does that ring a bell
Mr.
with
Chairman,
anybody?
if I can just add, since the drive is only for the benefit of the new lot that's being created, we can also have a condition, the board can consider adding a condition of approval to not have the driveway constructed until Boswell has reviewed the drainage plan and the plot plan for the new lot and for the lot that's
Yeah,
the
we would
existing
agree to
lot.
that. And I think you should also include a condition, as we've already stipulated, that will comply with all the requirements of the Boswell report.
Okay.
And what about, sorry to go back to the turtles again, I mean, sympathy. But the VEC recommends, conditioning the development in that back triangle. Is that something that is within our authority to do on this application?
Can we condition
Because that's
any
not something-
development of that second lot
'Cause
include or address this issue?
Because I don't think environmental issues come up when a site is developed unless it comes before a board like this or
It would
something.
be, well, if it's not, I think that's the distinction between what Mr. Trevelyak was making between a threatened species and an endangered species. I don't think that we can legally make that a condition.
Can I just make two quick points on that? First of all, we would commit to disturb as little of that area as is possible, number one. Number two, I think if you look at the report from the Environmental Commission, which shows this area delineated, that's delineated by the DEP. They have the entire forested area as, about 50 acres of land, that's subject to this DEP determination that this threatened species of wood turtle exists there. We don't know where they're located on this 50 acres. And according to, what we found from the DEP website, there was like one turtle seen somewhere in this 50 acres. It seems to be unfair to put that burden on any property owner, because there might be a wood turtle somewhere on this 50-acre property, and it might possibly be, we don't know for sure, and I just think it's not reasonable.
So that's the goal of this entity, is just to kind of flag locations where things might be, not necessarily where there's 1,000 breeding turtles right there, just for clarity, right?
That's my understanding. Again, that there's no restrictions that I'm aware of based upon my research earlier today, that prevents any, development or disruption, which would be very minimal given the fact that it's in the corner of the property. And as I said, we would do our best to limit, again, we don't know who's building the house, what it would be, but, I don't see how I could offer anything more than that.
Okay, so if I think I heard that motion correctly with all of the conditions that were brought up, would somebody like to make that motion?
I will make that motion with the conditions that you very ably stipulated, Mr. Chairman, to approve the variance with conditions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Edith. We're going to need a roll call vote.
Mr. Tully. Approved. Dr. Reese.
Approved.
Dr. Cortez.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Mr. Mathewson.
Yes.
Mrs. DiBartolo.
Yes.
Chair McGinley.
Yes. That would make it unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Yes, I'm going to. All right. We are going to move on to our next application, which is 2501 107 Hillside Avenue. And we're going to do a line shift up here. One of the stipulations is that if you have relatives within 200 feet, you cannot sit on the application, so I will be recusing myself. Our vice chair is not here. The next most senior member of the board would take over the chair. However, she's going to recuse herself. So the next most senior member of the board is going to take over the chair. Hang on.
Someone's got to move out of the town.
No, he said he has a which is not.
Yeah. All right. At first, is this, let's get them settled in.
Yes, it's Verona usually can't do it as an enforcer.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, just because it's something. I'll handle all of it. Oh, come on, ready?
Welcome. First of all, is this case,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the case of Chris and Lauren Hertz, 107 Hillside Avenue, Verona, New Jersey. The application was deemed complete. Notice was published in good order, so the board can proceed.
okay? I'm assuming, are you going to be presenting for?
Yes.
All right, can you stand and present your name and business address?
Is this counsel?
Architect.
Architect, okay. First, I think we have, will you be testifying also, sir?
Sure.
Well, we'll do the architect first. Can you
Okay.
state your name and business address for the record?
My name is James S. Karras, architect. Live at 27 Briar Hill Circle, Springfield, New Jersey.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
And can you state your licenses in order and your education?
Yes, I've been, completed my education in 1982 in New Jersey Institute of Technology. Been licensed since 86. Since then, I've been doing residential additions. I've done several in Verona, but this is my first variance I've had to do. I've done variance in Florham Park, Chatham, Milburn, Springfield, and several other areas in the neighborhood.
Is your license current?
Yes.
So,
Ask the board.
as the board, do you accept him as an expert witness?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so can you briefly describe what you're seeking from the council, from the zoning board?
Well, did you want to maybe hear from homeowners so they can maybe tell you a little bit of what they're looking to do, and I can.
Sure, we can start there.
Okay.
Mr. Hertz, can you state your full name and address for the record, please?
Full name is Christopher Hertz. Address is 107 Hillside Ave, Verona, New Jersey.
And are you the owner of the property?
Yes, my wife and I are.
And your wife's first name is Lauren? Okay. Lauren, we might as well swear you in also in case you're going to interject. Can you both raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we purchased the house right before COVID. We have two little girls, 6 and 3. We are slowly outgrowing our space, so we are looking to create some more space in our house. We love Verona, love the community. So we're just really trying to make it our forever home, and that's why we asked to Jim to create us a little bit of a bigger home for our family.
Okay, so with that, if you want to show what you're proposing for the property?
Sure, I'll take you through a little bit. So as you heard, Chris and Lauren came to me looking for, first they looked for an addition to their kitchen.
Can we just bring the microphone in front so this way we can record?
You can take it right out. You can take it off.
Thanks.
This is colorized version of the plans that the board has, correct?
That's correct.
It's the colorized. Do you want to do it as an exhibit because it's colored?
Only black and white?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
James Karras.
Mr. Karras, we're going to mark that as A1, and the plate says, if you could read the plate so we can identify the document.
Drawing ST1.
Okay.
Mark it A1.
And that's a document that you prepared, dated when?
Dated January 10, 2025.
Thank you.
So we originally did a renovation of the kitchen, and Chris and Lauren wanted to do a little more, create a little more space for their for their family. So we looked to do an addition off the back. So we have, our idea was that we created, it's a two-story addition, and it's mainly built over an existing section of the patio. So we're not really increasing the area, but as you'll see, we did put a few increases just to enlarge the patio itself. So on the first floor, we're looking to make a laundry room, a family room, and renovate the kitchen. So on the upper floor, they could really use another bedroom because they have one undersized room and their young girls are getting big. So this will give them a nice master bedroom and two decent sized rooms for the girls. So what we're looking at is an addition off the back, 2 stories. So we have, we meet the zoning criteria of most of the building, of all the building elements. We meet lot size, lot width, front yard, side yards. We are continuing an existing non-conforming, which is allowed per 150.13.3b. Rear yard, we meet. Building height, we meet. Where we have a variance issue is for maximum lot coverage. We meet the building coverage, but the lot coverage is, the requirement is 40%. The existing is 44%. And what we propose is to go to 44.74%. We have a slight, we are creating a pair of doors going down to a patio in the back, so we are enlarging that by about 2 feet just to give them enough room for a patio set on their existing patio. So that's our one variance. We end up being 0.74 over what's existing and 4.74 over the required. We do run into another variance for the maximum aggregate accessory structures for the rear yard. So when you total that, the requirement is 15%, and we fall at about 18.3. I did a little study where if we actually took out all the patios in the back, we'd be right at the 40%. So you could say the building elements are in compliance. It's really, we're here for a variance for basically the patio, because they would like to have a patio in the back that they could use their backyard. So I could take you through the first floor. The addition is entirely in the back, so we have a minimal impact to the front of the house and the streetscape. This new addition is from here out. It creates a family room and a dining room, a renovated kitchen, and laundry mudroom. Upstairs, over that same area, we create a master bedroom with a master suite, closet, and bath that allows for 2 bedrooms for the girls and the one undersized bedroom, which works pretty well for a nursery. Doesn't really work well for anything else than that, so that would really help them to have the 2 standard size bedrooms. Our elevations, this is the streetscape, so that won't be affected at all. Our addition is coming off the back. We'll be matching the existing clapboard siding. Here's our addition again, coming out here on the sides. We'll keep under the existing peak so that we're not affecting the front. We're within the height. And so
That's going to be, that's A2?
Yes.
That's the second, right, okay.
A2, which is drawing A3.
Drawing A3, A2 is going to be drawing A3?
Right. So, so we did, my intention initially was to create an inexpensive stormwater retention system. We did get a report from the Boswell engineers that that really our addition is under the requirement and is not required. So we would like to revisit that and work with Boswell to get something that is cost effective and but does drain the the storm water off. We don't want to create a condition. I do want to, as architect, I want to make sure that that water gets down to the driveway and out, so it's a safe condition. They have a set of stairs on the left-hand side that I want to make sure do not create any kind of pooling water. So we are kind of, my owners would like, I know there's some notes that are inadvertently on the drawings that talk about a dry well. We didn't plan to have an extensive dry well. What we'd like to do is possibly run drain lines that will bring the water down to the driveway. And what I'd like to do is work with Boswell and come up with something that is in approval, if that meets the board's approval. And
Mr. Karas, if I may, it's generally the board's preference to have stormwater not go to the driveway and into the stormwater system, but to pervious coverage, if at all possible. If this were approved, would you agree to work with Boswell to effectuate something that went to pervious coverage instead?
absolutely.
Okay.
All right, and can you describe the patio? Since that's what we're, I guess, really ultimately what we're seeking for with the variance.
It's a current bluestone patio, so what we are building over is currently bluestone, so they'd be able to add over that and match that in.
So the bluestone patio that you're intending to put, is that it's a loose layer, or is it concreted in? Like, so I'm just kind of trying to understand, like, if there's any type of permeability with that type of installation that you're describing.
Well, what's there already, I think, is hardscaped in, so I think we would probably match that as our intent. Our addition is only to add another couple of feet off the back of that, so it's a minor. It's only a couple of feet off the back just to make it fit their a seating area. That's our intention, was to just match what's there, which I think is hardscaped in, yeah.
All right, so that is the 0.74% that you're talking about. It's just that little extension of the patio.
Yes.
The rest of it is matching what you have existing.
Yes, we did take out, there was a gravel path that's on the left side of the house. We are calling for that to be taken out under the township ordinance. I think that counts as impervious, so we are getting a little bit of area from that, but other than that, we're pretty much keeping what's there. We are adding a platform and steps that get you down to the patio and a little strip off the back.
What is underneath the steps?
What we're proposing is a wood step, so it would be just permeable below that.
you adding 2 feet to the back bluestone patio?
That's correct.
That's how much square feet, roughly? What was the width?
2 by, that's more like 20 feet. Oh, I have it on my first drawing. 32 feet, square feet. I have that. Yeah, we're not proposing any other changes to the front or the side of the house, so it's all our addition is in the back, so it's confined there. We'll be accessing it through the front of the house, through the driveway and up the stairs for the construction.
Okay, just a quick question with the AC condensers. There are existing AC condensers there, you're just replacing?
There's one existing and there's one that's new. So they are, I think for the original denial letter, there was a correction that had to be made on my drawings. That's since been made. All the drawings that you have are correct. That the coverage is the 2897.
So at this point, you haven't hired an engineer as far as doing any site topography or any of that notion. So right now, we have the plans to review at this point, but your intention is then to bring Boswell on board then to
Only
develop that?
to, I don't think we're going to be required to have grading or anything. I think only to coordinate with them for whatever stormwater is required.
Stormwater.
Yeah.
If I can just add to that, so the property, it does not qualify as a minor development because the increase in overall impervious coverage is less than 400 square feet, correct? But they're over the permitted maximum coverage. So the board can consider if they want to have the applicant install a drainage system to account for that increase, but other than that, they don't have to. I know that drywall is shown on the plan, so are you still gonna go ahead with the drywall, or I know the plan shows drywall, but the detail shows Cultic drainage system?
My intention was, I added some of those notes that pertain to the drywall, but my intention was to use the Cultec system.
Yeah, also if I can add, drywall doesn't comply with the green infrastructure requirements for the town, so we kind of like try to stay away from drywalls, go more towards something that infiltrates into the ground. So yeah, Cultic would be a better choice, but then again, it's up to the board if they want to have like the applicant install a drainage system.
Are you recommending the Coltech system?
I have seen, yeah.
Yes. Could I ask, because being that if it's not required, I was looking into some other alternatives, and if there's a French drain type of system, is that something that we could work together with to have something work in the same area, which is not as intensive excavation for the homeowners?
I think the point is to have something that infiltrates, stores, and releases. So in that case, I feel like a Cultic system would be better. And then there's a whole table on the township website that define green infrastructure, BMPs that you can install. You can look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
we have any more questions from people on the board? If not, do we have any questions from the public for the architect? All right, seeing that there's none, do you have anyone else that you will be presenting? Okay, at this point, I would like to open up conversation amongst the board. Oh, does the public have any comments on the presentation?
I do, actually.
Oh.
Regina French, Verona. So you're just asking for 2 feet of patio behind the house?
Well, we're over the existing coverage, so we're already over a little bit. We're asking for an additional 0.73% in the area. Yes, basically the 2 feet.
So the very small amount?
Yes.
And they're asking for a drainage system for just, okay. Seems like overkill to me.
All right, seeing no further comments, we can have deliberation amongst the board.
I mean, how necessary is a patio anyway? I'm just kidding. I'm good. I got you. I'm good on that.
All right, seeing that there is none. So at this point, I think the only thing that we need to add into the discussion whether for voting is to determine on the water retention system of this, which the applicant has agreed to work with Boswell on a couple different options. The Coltex or the more green. what was that
Green
one?
infrastructure?
Green infrastructure.
Yeah.
Which either one was acceptable of Boswell, so we'll leave that up for a discussion between you. Can we leave it that open?
Sure, make it, if the board's inclined to approve it, make it a condition of approval that Boswell, the applicant, and Boswell Engineering will agree on a satisfactory
Drainage plan?
system, drainage
Yeah.
plan, right.
Yeah, and again, I agree with that. Just to be able to clarify that that's because there is an already pre-existing non-conforming impervious coverage or maximum improved lot coverage. So we are already over and granting additional as a result, which is why we are asking for all of these measures to be taken, not because it's just a fractional increase of an under number or whatever.
That's correct.
All right, do we have any other comments from the board? Is someone,
The only other, I guess, I'm going to refer, Mr. Chairman, to the Environmental Commission did make some recommendations regarding the, I guess on the addition, the downspouts being directed.
That'll be part of
the whole drainage issue?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Because I know sometimes there is overlap between the engineering report and the Environmental Commission's suggestions. And this is an area where you said there was basically overlap, that the engineering report will cover their concerns in that area.
Well, inadequate,
Yeah.
they'll come up with an adequate drainage plan, so, yes.
Okay.
all right, so seeing that, I guess the question is, do we have any concerns with the 0.74 over the existing? Do we have someone that will make a notion or?
Make a motion to approve the applications of variances with the stipulations regarding stormwater management be included in the approval. Greg, is that sufficient enough for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Is that a roll? Oh,
Has it been seconded?
Yeah.
Okay.
all right, do we have a roll?
Mr. Tully? Dr. Reese?
Approved, sorry.
Dr. Cortez?
Approved.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes, approved.
Chairman Mathewson?
Yes. I like the sound of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
The application is approved.
Could I request Mr. Chairman, a recess?
Yes, we could have a quick recess as we reset the board here.
How about 10 minutes?
10 minutes? Let's give for 7 minutes, so we'll start at 10 of.
Your community that so many people want to come and pray in your mosque. What time of day? I understand there are 3 prayers. What time of day? Would there be a specific time of day when there would be the potential for a specific prayer, when there would be the potential that it could reach 60?
Primarily throughout the year.
Okay.
Friday at 1:15.
Okay. So basically, for the sake of this conversation, we'll say that Friday at 1:15 is the most likely time if that were to happen. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. So the middle school is in session at that time. And since this happens throughout the year, with it only being a short summer break, the majority of Fridays will be subject to this potential issue in an area that's already very congested, being that the middle school is there. Has there been a traffic study to analyze and collect data on the real facts of this? Because I don't want a decision made just on people's emotions, because that's not good for anybody involved. And facts help us when we're in situations like this.
Absolutely.
So to that point, Mr. Chairman, we are just at the beginning of our testimony.
Mm-hmm.
Your question is a perfect one,
Mm-hmm.
and it is one not necessarily for this witness.
Oh,
but
okay.
we will answer.
Okay.
That is one of the questions that we are absolutely going to be
Okay.
getting to.
Well, that's great. And
Yeah.
so when that one comes up, I'll be here to ask it
Great.
and have other points on it. You spoke about a dialogue with the property owner, okay? And that's always good. But we found, based on past experience, which has nothing to do with who the tenant was, not at all. It has to do with how the property owner manages his property, because he too is a part of the community as an owner of a building. And our past experience with that owner has been negative. Prior to this specific space being available, there are many units within that building that owner owns.
Is there a question?
There is a question. There is a question. What assurance do we have that this property owner will be participating with the full good faith that you certainly are here and intending to do? Because previously, the property owner has not attended forums like this, where an opportunity was given to state his case and clear things up.
I understand your frustration with the property owner, and my understanding is the unit that we're looking at
Mm-hmm.
has been vacant for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the reason why it's in disarray, right?
That's fair. Mm-hmm.
And I think by putting an active, decent tenant there,
Mm-hmm.
you're improving the community and the standard of that community.
Mm-hmm.
And you're directing a question to me
Mhm.
about the landlord, and I don't feel like
Okay.
that's fair.
Then I will certainly hold my questions should the landlord ever decide to join us in these deliberations.
But I will tell you, if the landlord is not doing what he should be doing, I'm going to be standing right next to you saying, hey, we need to do something about
Okay,
this.
one other point that I am curious about, and possibly this isn't the moment, but it will be brought up if it's not, I'll bring it up at the right time, are the tax implications. Is that not?
No.
Okay, that's fine. Then I'm not fully versed in all of this, so so that's fine. Then, there you go. So we'll save that for another forum. Hang on just one second.
No, I think what they were saying is there are no tax implications. It's not that this isn't the time for it.
Okay.
It's not for this one.
But still, it's just not for now.
Okay.
Whatever it means, it's not for now. So I accept that. And the traffic study is for another time. I accept that. And you're saying that it's the Fridays with the potential to come up to 60, and that's throughout the entire year.
And we've spoken to the police chief about that.
Right. Okay, so then my last point would be parking issues. And again, might not be the right witness, but that it's already like a concern. It's a tight street.
Understandable.
Dovetails right there with the traffic issues and safety issues. So what's been done to analyze parking availability and,
That's coming.
yeah.
We have professionals that will answer that
Right.
question.
Yeah,
Okay.
If I may, yeah, that's another one of those central questions
Okay.
that we're going to be looking to answer.
Okay, great. Well, that's reassuring to know. Can't wait to hear it.
But one last thing on that with regard to the interactions with the landlord, I think it would also be helpful for us, but both for you, but the boards of professionals, if there had been other concerns that are outstanding, let us know. Because if you bring those up to us, we can then in turn bring them up to the landlord.
Okay,
So the garbage one, we definitely can understand, and that's one somebody can easily wrap their mind around. But if there's other things out there that we don't know about, we would like to. So again, going to hopefully giving you a comprehensive answer to that question.
Okay, and then MITS will be my last point. You spoke about how this is not intended as your permanent home. You're looking at this in a temporary way. But you want, and you deserve a comfortable space to gather in. This property has quite a few issues with occupancy around it and plumbing issues and things like that in terms of proper accommodation for the occupants. I, again, kind of go back to not sure how that's going to be addressed when potential for the group to grow does exist. And it's stated in, I'm not sure the name of the document, but something that was presented to the board, that you have no plans to make any alterations to the space at all. And I don't know how, that just doesn't seem to match up with wanting and deserving a comfortable space, yet being in a space that is in violation of a few things.
Well, if we're invited, do you want to answer that?
Basically, if there are violations on the site, those would have to be corrected. So if before they even move in, obviously they have to have a certificate of occupancy, which means that Verona's coming in, they're looking at it, and if the plumbing is not up to code, if electrical is not up to code, if whatever you're calling out is not up to code, that has to be brought up. And to Mr. Suleiman's point is, if part of the problems stem from the property being vacant and unused, well, some of those are likely going to go away if you have a tenant in there that needs to have these conditions corrected.
Well, the greater issue that brings us here together is not so much that it's vacant and we want to have a good tenant there, it's that it's not intended to be used in this manner. And that's why we're all gathered here. And that there needs to be I am looking for a proof, facts, that this will be, these issues will be addressed, and I don't understand how we've already had unsuccessful encounters with this landlord, and it's a difficult thing to feel comfortable about, and it's nothing to do with who's coming in. It's that issues are not being addressed. But I think I'm finished, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Massera. So if we grant this application as a house of worship, it has to be this applicant in this space. Is that correct? Or
Yes.
can
Well-
like a Buddhist, monastery come in with a congregation of 500 after they leave?
Well, typically, a variance runs with the land. I think what you would do would be have conditions on the capacity. You can't condition it on the religion. It can't just be, a house of worship for this congregation. So you would approve it as a place for assembly, and that would run with the land. So someone could come in and be a successor, yes.
But I think it's also important what you said, that there are other conditions that could be on part of the
Right.
An approval, and those conditions too would run with the land. So using your example of coming in with 500, well, something like that couldn't even happen because the site doesn't even have that capacity. But we don't have to get through every jot and tittle of that, but I think what's important is that, yes, a variance runs, but it's not an unfettered approval to allow anything and everything to come. So you still retain some controls to put in that would, follow through to if they left, if somebody else were to come.
Just as a point of order, before you begin, it's after 11 o'clock, and we don't take additional testimony after 11 o'clock, so we will hear all the questions, and then we will discuss what the next action is. Okay?
Understood.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Solomon, Mr. Jenkins, Thomas Monroe, Verona. Mr. Solomon, is the landlord here tonight?
No, he's not.
Has the landlord participated in any way in your application?
I mean, he would have, in the sense that we have to have the permission of the landlord to be here.
Has he funded this application in any way? Is that no? I need to speak verbally.
No, for sure, but no.
Has he made any representations to you as to go ahead and take a shot at getting a variance? Because ultimately, the variance benefits the landlord, correct?
Well, and to the extent that there's a tenant paying
Mr.
in there.
Jenkins, the question's directed to Mr. Solomon.
I'm not
It's
familiar
still
with
a
the
legal
law.
question.
You don't know?
I don't. I know that it benefits us. I don't know how.
Benefits you, but it also benefits the landlord, correct?
I don't know that
And
to
the
be true.
landlord's not here.
I don't know that to be true.
Are you aware that recently, Mr. Ryan alluded to it, but I'll come out and say it. There was a gun battle at this location. Are you aware of that?
I am.
Okay. Has the landlord made any representations to you about what he did related to that?
I'm not sure that he was involved in that.
Okay.
But I don't know the details.
Has he made any representations as to improvements that he'll make to this property for your benefit?
What kind of improvements are you referring
In
to?
other words, are you taking this property pursuant to the lease as is?
Yes.
Yes. So no improvements for the benefit of the Islamic Center of West Essex?
He's not making any improvements.
So you're going to make improvements?
If we're not we're not,
Mr. Jenkins, please let the witness.
okay, we're not intending to make improvements that, other than cosmetic improvements.
Well, define cosmetic improvements for me, please.
Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to or what you're asking for.
It's not my application, Mr.
I
Solomon.
understand
It's your
it's
application.
it's your question.
My question was, are you making improvements? I think you said yes.
So,
But
like I said,
your experts tell us no.
what I'm saying
So
to
which
you
is it?
we intend to keep the place as is. If you've seen it, that's the way we're planning to keep it. When I say cosmetic improvements, if we need to throw a coat of paint on the wall, we'll throw a coat of paint on the wall.
Do you know if this space you're going to occupy is up to code?
That's for the subcode inspectors to tell us.
Has the landlord made any representations to you that this property is up to code?
But we're going to apply for a certificate of occupancy, and the subcode inspectors will be out to inspect.
Are you about to sign a lease with this landlord? Or have you signed a lease?
So we have do I need to answer this?
You can talk about the existence or non-existence of a lease.
We have a lease that is conditional for the use.
So what are the contingency on this lease that you signed?
It's contingent on the approvals.
On the approval of this variance?
Correct.
Anything else?
Could you ask me a more specific question?
Is the lease contingent upon any upgrades to the property?
No.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Mr. Murrow, the lease, and he said it's conditioned, it's really not relevant to this application or any other conditions in that lease.
I think it is relevant because the lease will have permitted uses in it, right? If you have a lease, it tells you a commercial lease has permitted uses. So I believe this board should understand what this lease is going to say and what the permitted uses are, what the contingencies are, because he's seeking a variance based for a non-conforming use, but we don't know what the lease is going to permit him to do.
Well, this board will limit what he can do or allow what he can do.
All due respect, we saw what this board did with the last tenant there. So I think there may be some reason to have this lease in the record.
Mr. Monroe, this board, if you're referring to the tenant upstairs, this board never heard that application.
Very good. But that's why this board needs to have the strictest of scrutiny related to this premises because of what transpired at this property. It's unfortunate for the applicant, but there was a gun battle on the streets of Verona. 36 shots rung out in the middle of the night. These people, I don't know how they reacted, but I'm getting a little heated because it deserves to be heated. So where is this landlord? He has put the Islamic Center of West Essex in place of that, in place of him. They're doing his bidding. And that's all I have to say. I'll close with closing remarks. Thank you, Mr. Solomon.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to ask a question of this witness? You've already had your turn.
No.
No, you've already had your turn. No.
Excuse me, last time I saw one person ask it twice.
At this meeting?
Today, yes.
At this meeting?
Yes, absolutely, I saw this one. The rules, I saw one person sit here, make it twice. And I believe I have a right to make it twice. A question for, only two questions, and then I'm done.
Doctor, the answer is no. That person that you saw, excuse me.
You have to deal me with the same rule.
No, doctor, if you listen to me, I'll explain it to you. That person asked a question of the witness, and the next time he came up, he made a comment to the board at the conclusion of testimony. You have asked your question of this witness.
I need to make a comment also.
When the time comes at the end of the application for comments, you can make your comments.
But I saw with my eye, person speak twice. You don't see this one, guys?
You're not listening to what I'm saying. Please listen to me.
I am listening to you.
That person asked a question of the witness. At the conclusion of testimony.
Okay.
Can I ask a question of the board?
Sure. Not at this point.
What?
No.
No?
No. The questions are of the witness.
Only witness.
I can't ask a question?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Questions of the witness only.
Thank you. I have something to say about it.
Hi, I know it's late. I'm Eileen Carney from Verona. After listening to everything, I'm still not really clear what the hours of operation of this is. I live right next door, so if you could tell me when are you going to be opening in the morning?
So, in the morning, it differs throughout the course of the year. We have morning prayers, and those are generally small because they're in the wee hours of the morning.
Which are what?
So, in the summertime, I say it gets as early as 5:30, I want to say, maybe 5 o'clock. And then in the wintertime, it gets as late as 6:30. And it sounds like an hour and a half, but it's really 2 hours and a half because the hour changes.
And how late at night?
So for most of the year, it's 7:30. or I want to say about half the year it's 7:30, and then it goes between 7:30 and 10 o'clock.
Okay, I am concerned as well about the parking.
That's understandable.
It's a nightmare on that street, and I don't know, how many times a day do you pray?
So primarily we have an imam or someone who leads the prayers retained for twice a day.
Twice.
But we are required to pray 5 times a day.
That's what because I read in the Islamic Center on Grove Street that they have it 5 times a
Right.
day, like 5 and 6. And
Right. But those are, so I can tell you that during the day, with the exception of Friday, even if you go to the Islamic Center of Verona, nobody's there
Okay.
at those times.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant at this time?
I have a comment.
There's no comments till the end of the hearing.
I do have one question. So I am a realtor, and I have shown 266 Bloomfield in Caldwell.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that you had to leave there because of fire code.
Correct.
Was it because of capacity?
No, it was
You
because
mentioned like you're small, but.
it
that's
didn't have
not-
sprinklers. It didn't have sprinklers. It was a mixed-use building with no sprinklers.
No sprinklers.
Yes.
Okay, and how many members of your congregation are from Verona?
It's hard to tell. We don't have a census. So, but I can tell you, if they're not from Verona, they are from the surrounding area. So they're from Caldwell, North Caldwell, West Orange, Montclair. Actually, I don't know how many. Yeah, maybe Montclair. But it's hard. We all kind of know each other, but we don't have like a census with an address and So I can't give you an exact number, but it's
But
handful.
members of our community are part of your congregation?
Absolutely, yes. I think they're all from Verona here.
And then the other question is, are you not affiliated in any way with the Grove Street Center? Are you two separate?
We're two separate entities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Tolan. Okay. Seeing no one else, we are now after 11 o'clock. We are going to need to continue this application. I have to ask our acting secretary, our zoning officer, acting secretary, what does the calendar look like?
The next meeting is May 8th. We have 2 on for that night.
D's, C's,
No, I don't think we have any Ds. We have a generator in the side yard, and then we have a larger application.
board feel comfortable that we could squeeze this application in before those?
So, excuse me, if I may, I am not available on May 8th.
Oh, phew.
I believe, I'm not, I believe one of my other professionals are not available on that date as well.
Okay. Would we be then looking at June 12th?
Yes. And we're good.
And they're there?
I'm available on June 12th.
Perfect. Would you be willing to go with June 12th?
I believe that works just. Okay. Yes, I believe that works.
That was cool. All it took was a thumbs up. Okay.
We try to tell you we're easy and accommodating.
Mhm. And you did tell me you talk well. Or long. Was it talk long? All right, so we will adjourn now and move this hearing. It'll be adjourned to the June 12th meeting at 7:30 PM at this location, and no further notice is required.
We need their consent.
And you have the consent
We have your consent?
with regard to that extension.
Okay. Then we're
Updated.
finished with you.
Greg.
We are not finished meeting, so if you are leaving at this point,
Mr. Massaro.
we would appreciate the quiet leaving. And thank you all for coming. And
Thank you.
we hope to see you back here on
Dated
June
plan.
12th.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Jenkins, the updated plans. You said you had updated plans? Provide them to Kathy, if you want to provide them tonight.
Okay. While we still have any reason for executive session? None. Any reason not to accept the motion to adjourn? Beautiful. We stand adjourned. Richie, you can turn it off.
So let me,
I'll take it at your office.